Okay, my wife and I own a ultralight flight training and powered parachute dealership. It's called Morrow Air. My wife, of course, this is her favorite. This is a paraflier by Phoenix Industries in New Jersey, and it is the smallest of the powered parachutes. Adequately will handle 185 to 190 pound pilot. This is steered by hand. Unlike these other units are all foot steering, this is a hand steering just like a skydiver does. The steering lines hang down here in front. The pilot sits in the seat, does the steering. Throttle is also held in the hand at the same time, and this throttle moves up and down with your hand. This is a super flying little unit, and it'll show you the difference in sizes. This particular unit has one of the smaller engines. It's a G22 Zenoa, 4-blade wooden prop. You're going to see wooden and composite props here. People always ask which is better. It depends on the unit. Basically what a manufacturer does is they try different props. They try 2-blade, 3-blade, 4-blade, wood, composite, and it's basically what will give them the best thrust for that particular engine canopy combination. This prop is custom made for Phoenix Industries by Tennessee Props. These other two here are Ivo props. They're composite. There are several other composite props, warp drive, power fin, that are used quite heavily too. The advantages of a 4-blade prop over a 3-blade or a 2-blade, as I said, it depends mainly on the engine and what it seems to run best with. It gives you the most thrust. Typically, a prop, we would like to have the largest diameter we can. And of course, obviously, with a 2-blade prop, you can get a larger diameter. But in some cases, the 2-blade doesn't give you the amount of thrust as, like in this case, trying different 2-blade, 3-blade, and a 4-blade. This 4-blade gave the most thrust for this particular unit. The main thing we don't want to do is we don't want to use a metal prop. Transfers too much shock to the crankshaft and to the engine and the structure. Wood or composite is the preferred material. But this is the baby of the group. This is a Buckeye single-seater. It's kind of up in the larger size units. And the DM2, the Dream Machine 2, is the 2-place Buckeye, which is one of the larger units. The only one that's larger is the Paraplane Golden Eagle, which is a 2-place, and it's a little larger structurally. The 6-shooter, which is an excellent unit, also is about the size of the Buckeye. This is a custom unit by Phoenix Industries, and structurally it's a minimal powered parachute. It's very well designed, performs extraordinarily well. It's available with a number of different engine combinations, canopy combinations. It is a very quick handling unit, and it's sort of a mid-size. Primarily, a lot of people like the smaller units if they can use them. The paraflier, for example, in about 10 minutes, we can unsnap that and put it in the trunk of your car. So we don't have to have a trailer or anything like that to handle it. This unit is 104 pounds ready to fly. The bigger units here, this one is about 235 to 240 pounds a single seat. Notice that does fit within Part 103 weight requirements. The Dream Machine is going to run about 320, depending on the options. It does not fit Part 103. You have to be operating it under the training exemption. The custom unit here, which is a modified paraflier airframe, is about 170 pounds, something like that, 180 pounds. We've talked a little bit about the difference in size, and that is the primary size and weight. That's the primary consideration we use for the canopy we're going to have. All of the powered parachutes by Buckeye, six-shooter, Harmonings, Paraflier, Phoenix, they all use what we call a rectangular ram air canopy. They're relatively stable canopies. They have quite a bit of drag, but they perform predictably. The primary difference in canopy size is the weight. The little unit here with 104 pounds and a 180-pound pilot, you're going to be able to fly quite adequately and quite well with a 315 square foot canopy. The big two-place units, such as the Buckeye Dream Machine, with a gross of 700 to 800 pounds, we're going to need to have a 500 or a 550 square foot canopy. The other units are sort of in between. A typical single seat unit will require a 450 square foot canopy, all the way down to the paraplanes and the custom unit from Phoenix, about 360 square feet. So as far as the canopies are concerned, there's not a lot of difference in the design. They're primarily difference in the square footage of lift area. Obviously, the smaller the canopy, the quicker it reacts and performs. It's also a little easier to handle. It gets up quicker, pressurizes. You remember we were talking about canopy pressurization. It starts filling in the center cells and then works its way out. If you look at the dividers between the cells on a canopy, you'll see that there's air transfer holes in those dividers, and it allows the air to start working its way out. Obviously, the smaller canopies will pressurize much quicker than the big ones. The primary difference between the canopies on this type of unit here and what we call the powered paraglider or the paraglider or powered parawing is these are the rectangular ram airs. The parawings or paragliders use a elliptical or a semi-elliptical canopy. Sort of they're tapered towards the ends of the cells. There was a couple of reasons, I think, for the powered parachutes to use the rectangular ram airs. They are a bit more stable. They don't have the performance that the elliptical canopy does. The elliptical canopy is very quick handling, but it also requires a lot of training to be able to handle it safely. The powered parachute, which actually was developed back in the 60s, a lot of work was done up at Notre Dame University. They worked quite heavily on canopy design. And one of the criteria that's always been used by the major manufacturers of powered parachutes is that the canopy is almost foolproof. They are very stall resistant. They don't have any unusual characteristics of one side collapsing or the other. They're very stable. Of course, this doesn't give you quite as much performance as you get with the paraglider wing, but there's a certain amount of ease of learning to fly. All right, the canopy basically in a powered parachute takes care of itself. You really have to, only thing that you have to do is worry about that it inflated properly before takeoff, and once you're at that stage, there's nothing much that goes wrong with the canopy. As far as I know, there have been no structural failures of the canopies in flight. Yeah, as far as I know, there has been no structural failures of a canopy. Actually, if we want to get right down to talking about structural failures, the manufactured units have not had any structural failures, and we're talking 16 or 17 years now, and an awful lot of flights. I started about 1947 or 48. Had a great uncle who had a Veely monocoupe. Don't know whether you know what that is or not, but it was one of the real old fixed wing airplanes. Had a little radial engine on it and big bicycle wheels. And he came to visit us one time from California, and I talked him into a ride. And at that point, I was either 7 or 8 years old and knew that I had to fly. We also had seen all of the aircraft for the military in the 40s flying over our farm. I started flying, got my private certificate in 1956, and learned in the same thing that most people at that time did, a J3 Cub. Then went to work for the FAA and spent 31 years as a aviation safety inspector. My specialty was airworthiness, and finally decided I didn't have time to work regular FAA job and to indulge myself in what I prefer to do, which is flying. And so I retired January of '97 after 31 years, and we've gone full-time into flying and aviation consulting. The reason that we ended up with powered parachutes was less stress initially. As an instructor, it's just more comfortable to work with a student. It's harder for a student to really get themselves in a bind. It's harder for them to hurt themselves. And I kind of like that idea. I've done a lot of fixed wing instruction, multi-engine instruction and instrument, but you always worried. With the powered parachutes, I worry just a little bit, you know. I had to keep an eye on them, but it's not anything like a fixed wing. The safety record on powered parachutes is really phenomenal. There have been either 8 or 9 fatal accidents now in the 16, 17 years that they've been out. There's well over 10,000 powered parachutes flying now. And you don't have many fatal accidents. Most of them will involve, well, they all actually involve pilot error of some type. But we have power line strikes, we've had a drowning or two, we've had a few strikes on buildings and things like that. But they were not caused by a defect or a design defect in powered parachutes. They've been superb. Now, I do want to say, though, that there are some powered parachutes that are built by individuals without any knowledge of the engineering principles or anything like that of powered parachutes. And there have been some problems with those. Most of the manufacturers of powered parachutes will not sell their canopies to somebody unless they know what they're going to be used on. And in most cases, they won't sell them to a home-built type unit. You know, these units are all put together from kits. The dealer puts them together, but they are carefully designed and engineered. You'll see a certain amount of similarity between all powered parachutes. And basically this is just what's worked out over the years to be a proper and safe design. Buckeye, Paraplane, Phoenix, six-shooter, Harmonings, those, for example, those are properly designed. they've had good engineering work into them. They've proven themselves over the years. I don't think you look so much at the design on one of those types of units as you look at the condition. All right. We would take a look at the different fittings and hardware, bolts. Be sure that things aren't wearing, just like you would on a fixed wing ultralight. Check the cables, be sure you don't have corrosion or broken strands. Be sure that the sleeves, the sleeves here on the Nyco press, be sure that they're correct. This is not pulling out. General airworthiness condition is what we would really look at. The canopies, the best way to have a canopy checked is send it back to the manufacturer. I highly recommend that. It's relatively inexpensive, and they're the ones who really know that canopy and the material, and they can tell you whether it's safe or not, or if little repairs need to be made. At one time, and I think it's probably still very, very close to that, Quantum canopies, Quantum parachutes, which make some of the canopies for Buckeye, if you sent them the canopy for $250, they did repairs, replaced lines, checked it all out, made sure everything was in perfect condition, and would send it back to you. And now, to me, that's cheap insurance.
Is that pretty common among canopy manufacturers?
Yes, they all canopy manufacturers do participate in both inspections and repair and maintenance. You can take your canopies to a certified rigger that's properly rated, but in most cases, I think you're probably going to end up at least quicker at the manufacturer of the canopy. They have the parts and stuff like that. But you can do field repairs on them if you know what you're doing. Some of the manufacturers are giving special classes at some of the safety seminars on how to replace some lines, suspension lines in the field. And so there is work going on. But generally, we suggest that you don't do anything with your canopy except inspect it thoroughly. Let the experts handle any kind of repairs or, God forbid, modifications. We were talking a little bit about what do you look for at a used unit or something like this. We can just use this one right here as a good example. We take a look at the general structure. You can tell pretty well how a unit's been maintained. If everything is relatively clean, you're going to get some dust and stuff. Your suspension lines are clean, neatly stored. Take a look at all of the bolts and hardware. Almost all of the bolts or fasteners that are used on powered parachutes have nylock fasteners or nylock nuts. You want to be sure that there's at least a thread showing through the nut. You can catch your thumbnail on it. This shows that it's properly locked. You can tell the way the machine's been cared for, if there's been maintenance done, by taking a look at some of the fasteners. If you see some fasteners that are way too long, the threaded portion sticks out quite a ways, or it's back in the nut, that means somebody's probably replaced something and you don't really know what kind of care they did in the repair. The manufacturers, when they ship a unit, the hardware is correct. Right? They all use accepted aviation practices.
Are you guys using AN hardware?
AN
Can
almost.
you explain that?
That's Army-Navy standard. Hardware is designated as AN, MS, there's NAS, there's a few other standards. The typical one that we use is the AN, or Army-Navy standard. And I think primarily because of the availability. It is a known quantity. When you buy bolts, nuts, and stuff, AN, they're certified to meet that particular standard. Doesn't necessarily mean they're better than something else, but we are assured a certain quality, all right, and we know what that is. We also have all of the torque values. Everything, every fastener on a powered parachute or any other aircraft should be torqued with a torque wrench, okay? This, you know, well, if it's tight, that's great. If it's a little tighter, that's even better. And you'll see a lot of bolts that'll shear from over-torquing. It doesn't take much torque on these. An AN3 or AN4 bolt, 60 to 70 inch-pounds is more than adequate. If you think about that, that's not a whole lot of torque. That's pretty gentle. Okay, this particular unit I'm in here right here is a custom conversion by Phoenix Industries, and Dan Thompson is sort of like one of the grandfathers of powered parachuting. He really knows the design, the canopies, the structures, flying characteristics, and everything. And he is basically taken this unit, and you can buy it in a kit form. It's called a Sport. You can have any combination of engines from about 22 horsepower up to, I believe it's 140 horsepower now. Have no idea why you'd want 140, but they are available. And canopy sizes from about 315 square feet up to around 600 square feet. So it can be customized for you. This is my favorite flying machine, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the others. It's just that this one is fairly quick handling. It's light. I can handle it easily on the ground, and it performs very, very well. It's also very reasonably priced. This unit is around $8,000 in that neighborhood. Just some of the things I can use this to kind of show us some of the things you'd look for if you were looking at a used powered parachute. Just general overall look of it, and I think you got the stuff on the hardware, didn't you? Okay. You do want to have a fairly complete instrument pack. Got a little dust here. You want to have a tachometer to show you your RPM, cylinder head, and exhaust gas temperatures. They're critical for monitoring the condition of your engine. Be sure you're not doing something to it that you shouldn't. Okay. This particular unit has the throttle. It's electric start, keys here. Notice the key is tied onto the unit. That's so when you're up in the air, if you happen to drop the key, you're not out of luck. It'll just hang there, okay? And that has happened. It hadn't happened to me, but I know fellows it has. Choke, and all your throttle, all your controls are right there by you. We would check on a used unit. This is one of the steering lines, and particularly in the area that goes through the routing pulleys, we want to just check and make sure that there's not fraying and wear. Be sure that they're nice and clean, no knots. Just kind of take a good close look at them. The same with the suspension lines, clean, kept nicely ordered. Check your cable swages. These are Nycopress swages, and a thimble. Be sure that any cable that you're looking at, be sure there is a thimble. That's this inside structure that holds the cable in position and keeps the cable from rubbing on the connector. That's protection. They are designed, people will say, oh my, I can see that this is wearing inside of the thimble here, okay? That's what they're designed to do. When the cable when it has worn down to where you're starting to get through the thimble, that's when the cable unit should be replaced. That protects the cable. Kind of walk around a little bit. These are pretty standard aircraft type fittings. You'll see these on the fixed wing ultralights. You'll see a lot of the same type of thing on sailboats, other construction. This unit right here, this rod right here, is really designed for one thing, and when you've got your canopy laid out behind, what this does is it flops out and it holds the suspension lines from getting into the prop area. It's very handy. Once you're flying, it doesn't have anything to do with the operation. It's just kind of a neat little thing that Paraplane and Dan Thompson figured out to kind of keep things right. This is a maximum 5-gallon tank, which is a standard Part 103 limitation. This is the Genoa G50 engine with electric start. It's a nice engine, runs very, very well. I like the electric start. I do have a manual starter here just in case, okay? I did try it once to be sure it did work. Take a look at the exhaust system. We have the retaining springs here at the joints. If you'll notice, we keep safety wire through them so that if these springs do tend, once in a while these will break, and we don't want a piece of spring going back through the prop. It's kind of hard on it. These are my expensive prop covers. They're actually just good outdoor boot socks, and they do a nice job of protecting the prop. I think they're also colorful. I like to tell people that, well, for a special price, I can get them these custom prop covers. And
why do you want to cover your prop?
Just protect it from any kind of nicks and everything, keep dust and dirt off of it. In these hangars, birds tend to, once in a while, diddle.
How do you feel about a 1 belt versus, say, 4 on a Quicksilver or whatever?
I've flown Rotac rallies and Quicksilvers and everything, and both the single and the multiple belt. I've never had a belt failure, so I don't really, it doesn't, it's not significant to me. I do change belts every year, okay, which some people don't do, but I just go ahead and change them. Just to be on the safe side. Gates recommends basically every year that you change a belt, and that just avoids any kind of problem. Okay, I don't know that there's no performance difference between the single or the multiple belt. Right. Also, always check and make sure that your carburetors are firmly attached. This is a remote choke system right here. This is actually your throttle linkage to the carburetor slide. Filters should be clean. Check your prop bolts. Be sure they are safety wired. I haven't known of any of them to come off, but it's just a good idea. We generally will safety anything that has any kind of rotation or a prop. Okay. Check the prop guard. This is just a fuel tank vent to vent some of the fuel. We would check all of our thimbles, like on the support cables here. These cables serve the same purpose that the triangular tubing structure serves on a lot of the other powered parachutes. Equally strong, equally effective. It just depends on what a person likes to see. And actually, that's pretty standard statement. Of the major manufacturers, there's really not much difference in their quality or structural integrity or design. It's more like Chevrolets and Fords and Buicks and stuff. It's kind of in the eyes of the beholder. A lot of people will not like this unit because it doesn't have the really neat electrostatic painting coating. This is just anodized. Doesn't have, I'll show you here on the cables. These are the suspension cables. This is what your canopy attaches to. This cable right here has a comfortable working load of 1,700 pounds. There's 4 of them. So you're looking at, 6,800 pound working load. And this whole unit, when it's flying, is between 400 and 500 pounds. So you've got all kinds of support. Most of your manufacturers, though, have gone to the heavier cables. This has a working load of someplace around 3,500 or a little higher each cable. And you've got 4 of them for the support of the canopy. I don't know that the manufacturers would agree with this, but in my view, this is a marketing tool more than it is a safety tool. It just looks to the people who are not familiar with aircraft construction and the quality of the materials looks stronger. It is stronger, but it's not necessarily needed. Well, Part 103 is Federal Aviation Regulation 103. We more commonly say FAR 103. And it's the rules that govern the operation of ultralight aircraft. Every one of the rules, FARs, will start with an applicability statement. In other words, what does this rule apply to? And you have to take a look at that and see that we're talking about, among other things, a single occupant only. We're talking about a weight of 255 pounds or less, talking 5 gallons or less of fuel, and certain speed restrictions, 65 knots. There's a couple other, I can't remember all of them right now, but there's a couple other slight restrictions. But as long as a vehicle, and I say vehicle because the regulation refers to vehicle, not aircraft, defines what is considered a 103 legal vehicle, which, by the way, that kind of leads to an interesting story. FAA cannot regulate vehicles. They can only regulate aircraft. And so being a vehicle, it takes it out of the regulatory realm, other than the certain restrictions that are placed on what constitutes a legal vehicle, legal at 103. One of the things that I think most people in the United States don't realize is the degree of freedom that we have in flying a Part 103 vehicle. Very few other countries, and we're at an airport, so obviously we're going to have some flying here. Very few other countries have the freedom to fly what we call an ultralight vehicle that we do. There's been a lot of effort in the past years to increase weight, increase speed, increase size of the 103 vehicle. And I personally have always been a little concerned with that because I don't want to take a chance on losing what we have, this very unique Part 103. We can have other categories, other classes, and some other FARs, but I think we're better off to leave 103 alone. The primary thing that I think causes trouble with Part 103 is the way that the FAA has worded the rule. It says that a pilot's not required any training or certification, and the vehicle is not required to be built to any standard or to be certified. And I think that this leads a lot of the general public to believe that anything that fits, any vehicle that fits within that category has got to be dirt simple to fly. If it wasn't simple, then Big Brother would never let us fly it without training. If it wasn't simple to fly, Big Brother never let us fly it without a certificate of some kind. So the very fact that the FAA does not require that has led a lot of people to a sad end because they don't require training. We get people that will almost become belligerent if we suggest that they fly a little bit with an instructor, an ultralight instructor, or even get training in a small general aviation trainer such as a Cub or a Champ or a 150 or something like that, because it's not required and obviously not needed, or it would have been required. We have had a fairly poor safety record with Part 103. We are particularly having trouble with the safety record of the unregistered aircraft. Now, these are aircraft that are exceeding the limitations of Part 103, either weight or fuel or occupants, and people are operating them the same as they would a 103 legal ultralight. The hazard to the pilot and passenger increases radically with the speed of the vehicle. Example, 32 miles an hour, if you double that speed, you quadruple the forces on impact. So the chances of being killed or seriously injured in the heavier aircraft and the faster aircraft increases radically. We do have a way of flying the two-place ultralights or the heavier ultralights, and this is under a training exemption that FAA has issued to several of the organizations such as USUA, ASC, EAA, in order to allow them to use vehicles that weigh up to 494 pounds and have 10 gallons of fuel and provision for more than one occupant. They're allowed to be used for training. This has helped immensely. Unfortunately, there's an awful lot of people that are buying the two-place vehicles and not getting the training and not operating them under the exemption. The FAA considers this as operation of an unregistered aircraft. Same as if you went out and bought a Cessna 150 and didn't register it, didn't license it, didn't have it with an annual inspection, and you had no pilot certificate. The FAA looks upon that exactly the same way. The best way to accomplish the goal of getting people to get legal, okay, get the exemption if they have a two-place, is education. And most of the organizations try to have a number of safety seminars that are specifically for ultralights around the country to get people in to hear what's required, what is recommended. We recommend training for everybody, even if it is a legal 103. I know that a lot of instructors feel frustrated with the 103 student because they don't have any kind of control. It's just strictly up to the student to decide he wants to do something. But training does help tremendously. The safety record of people with training in ultralights is very, very good. They are relatively easy to fly. The primary thing is they are slow and they are light. The energy forces on an impact are very, very minimal. One of the best ways to choose an instructor is probably going to be word of mouth. If you've had some friends that have taken some training, check with them, see what they thought of the instructor. You want an instructor who is willing to spend the time with you and talk to you. be able to take the time to answer all of your questions. There's no silly question or dumb question, but get the instructor who will talk to you. Big thing is with the instructor that you get along, that your personalities don't clash. You'll like some people you like better than others. You have a little bit of respect for some people. Try to pick somebody who you feel compatible with and comfortable with. The other thing, of course, is make sure that they have the proper credentials. They've been properly trained as instructor. To operate as a ultralight instructor under any of the training exemptions, the person must have gone through the ground school and the training and taken the FAA written test for fundamentals of instruction, just like an instructor in 747s. So they have to have at least been exposed to and demonstrated a certain level of knowledge of how to instruct and the different techniques that are used. This is important. One of the things that we were always told as instructors is that the best instructor is not necessarily the best pilot. An instructor is a safe pilot and should always set the example for his students. One of the things that I've been an instructor since 1962 in multi-engine, instrument, fixed wing, and now ultralights. And one of the things that I have found is that if you teach your students to always do a thorough pre-flight, and then they come down to the airport and they see you walk out to the vehicle or the aircraft and just hop in, you've negated everything that you've tried to teach them, because they're going to do as you do, not as you say. And if it's obviously not important enough for you to do a thorough pre-flight each time, then they shouldn't have to either. So an instructor has to be very, very careful with setting the example for the students anytime he's flying. One of the problems we have with instructing is the amount of time. When someone asks, how long will it take me to learn to fly a powered parachute, for example? I can tell you 2 to 3 hours will get you to the point that you are relatively safe in perfect conditions with nothing that happens. The only thing I can't tell you is how long a time span it's going to take to get that 2 or 3 hours. This year, for example, we've had absolutely terrible flying conditions. We've either had thunderstorms, rain, or winds that exceed the limits we use with students. I have students that have been trying to finish up their training for 3 months or more, and there's not anything that you can do about it. The tendency is for us as instructors to say, well, I've got a bunch of students waiting here, so I'm going to have to fly them no matter what. And what we're doing is we're not going to be giving the students the benefit of proper training in very controlled conditions, which we need to do. The wind limitations on powered parachutes are a little more stringent than with the fixed wing ultralight. Crosswinds, in other words, a wind that's not directly, that we can't take off directly into or land directly into, we like to limit to less than 5 miles an hour. And that sometimes can be pushing it. As far as wind that we can take off directly into or land directly into comfortably, 10 to 12 miles an hour is very comfortable once a person becomes a little experienced. As a matter of fact, that type of wind actually makes it easier to fly. The canopy will inflate quicker, comes up easier, your landing speed is not quite as high. It seems to be a little easier to use. It's not uncommon at all to have somebody buy a new unit, say, well, I don't need any training, and immediately hop in and try to fly. In most cases, they're not involved with serious accidents, but enough to maybe hurt themselves or damage the equipment and their ego, at which point they usually will start taking the training seriously. The typical accident that we have like that is somebody losing directional control, ending up going into trees, hitting fences. I saw one person one time with very little experience, was trying to take off, and he'd go a little ways and the canopy didn't inflate properly, so he would shut down, and then he'd try it again. And instead of pushing back to the end of the runway again, he just kept going down this runway. When he finally got off, he was off and up to about 5 feet of altitude when he hit a big dead tree trunk that was sticking up. Tremendous wham, bent side rails, tore up the nose wheel. Fortunately did not hurt him, but it did hurt his ego. This is just simply a matter of not thinking, just closing the mind to common sense. Always leave yourself all the possible room you can. And we could tell dozens of stories of people who have bruised their ego and maybe minor damage to the units just from ignoring their instructor's instructions and not receiving some training. A powered parachute, and I think you noticed that this morning with Leroy, by the time a person gets 4 or 5 hours and 4 or 5, 6 flights under direct supervision, they're becoming fairly proficient. They aren't as prone to making, I'm going to say, stupid mistakes. They will have some problems, and hopefully their skills have developed to the point at that time that they can handle them, and they'll learn from them. But without any kind of training, it's very, very difficult to not do some damage to either yourself or the machine. There are 3 primary organizations that are now involved in ultralight activities. USUA is primarily fixed wing. USUA, United States Ultralight Association. The Aerosports Connection, ASC, and Experimental Aircraft Association, the EAA, are all heavily involved with ultralights, and also the training exemption for the 2-place. Joining a organization such as that, I think, is important to a person. You get a tremendous amount of safety information. You have sources of contact. You have safety seminars. You have various training programs that are available. You have sort of a camaraderie. They have clubs. All of the organizations have clubs and chapters where you can get with people similarly interested, get training. I think it's important, if we're going to be ultralighters, to join one of those organizations. The more people that they have in the organization, the more clout, if you want to put it, the more pull they have with the FAA. You know, the FAA is far more concerned about what 5,000 people think about something than they are about what 1 person or 50 people think. So we need to join at least one of the organizations. 2 organizations have a training exemption for 2-place units that relate specifically to powered parachutes, and that's the Experimental Aircraft Association and ASC, Aerosports Connection. One of the primary organizations for powered parachute folks, though, is the North American Powered Parachute Federation, and that's an organization of powered parachute owners, pilots, and the manufacturers that basically cover Canada, United States, and Mexico. And they're the organization that deals with the FAA on new certification rules for pilots and aircraft in the powered parachutes. And we're working on several things right now with the FAA. The North American Powered Parachute Federation does not have a two-place training exemption because we actually serve as the powered parachute wing of ASC, and we function very closely with EAA. So the NAPPF members may be operating under either one of those exemptions, okay, and may be members of either one or both of those organizations in addition to the NAPPF. North American Powered Parachute Federation has all of the competition for powered parachutes in the United States. We have our national championships at Marshall, Michigan, along with the ASC annual meeting at an event called KIMO, K-I-M-O. And that's over Labor Day weekend. And we have some pretty difficult competition. It shows the skills of the powered parachute pilots. We also have good prize money, $1,000, $1,500 to class winners, and a lot of participation. Competition does sharpen your flying skills. One of the things that I find most intriguing and enjoyable about powered parachutes is that it's just plain fun. You know, there's no, I don't have to go, I don't have to be any place, I don't have to get someplace at a certain time. If I don't want to fly or the weather's not exactly right, I don't have to. So it's purely pleasure. And I love to come down in the mornings particularly, and early flights in the mornings with here at our airport. It'd be extremely rare that we didn't see a lot of deer and wild turkey. We do have a couple of bobcats here. We have one mother bobcat that had a little cub last fall, and that was fun to watch. It's just, you know, to tool up and down the levees and around the timber areas and everything at a couple 100 feet and just enjoy seeing things at a slow speed. You can't help but relax. If you got a little stress, this will take care of it.